Mediterranean and latest developments there. My first question is, lately we are hearing some voices around there about a possible naval borders agreement between Israel and Turkey. Under which terms this can be possible? Because if Turkey and Israel sign this kind of agreement, both sides is going to win more territory than as of now. For example, the current agreement of Israel with Cyprus, Greek administration, provides you with 4,600 kilometer square loss. But if you sign it with Turkey, you will gain over 14,000 kilometer squares in naval territories in Eastern Mediterranean.
So indeed, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Chavusoglu repeated it in his interview to CNN on the 18th of June, in which he said that if Israel wished to sign such an agreement with Turkey, Israel will first need to give up the agreement we signed with Cyprus, I think in 2010. I thank you, Eva, for the question because this helps us to clarify the situation. As it stands now, without the political tension between Turkey and Israel, Israel has no intention to sign currently any agreement with Turkey, and definitely not to give up or to cancel the agreement we have currently with Cyprus. So basically, it's a non-issue for us.
Under which conditions these terms can change?
Under changing of the political climate. I think basically what is so far is a serious obstacle to all joint energy projects in the East Med between Israel and Turkey, either signing a maritime agreement or pipelines that will go between Leviathan and Mersin or Jihan. The main obstacle is a political one. Under the current political framework of the relationship, there is very little that Israel and Turkey can achieve together.
Okay, so how is activities in Mediterranean Sea about all the drilling and about Turkey's accusations of East Med as they are an anti-group organization that signed this agreement?
So currently, unfortunately, those steps, those moves taken by Turkey is being taken by Israel, by Jerusalem, and not only by Israel, as many of them to be provocative acts. The agreement, for instance, between Turkey and Libya, which is doubtful from an international point of view, because the Libyan parliament did not confirm it. The Turkish parliament did, but the Libyan parliament did not. Yet it was sent to the UN. And so I think the legal status of this agreement is doubted. And yet I believe that the main reason for this agreement is to block a possibility of what is known as East Med pipeline that will stretch from Leviathan here through Cyprus into Greece and from there to Italy. According to the UN law of the sea, it says very clearly that the states who are on the continent do not have continental shelves, continental states do not have the right of veto. They cannot prevent other states to use the sea for putting a pipeline. The delineation of the pipeline should be done in consensus with the continental state, but the mere fact of having a pipeline is not up to Turkey or Libya to do.
But Turkey is not one of the signatory states of that agreement.
Excuse me?
Turkey is not one of the signatory states of a UN sea territory agreement.
No, what I'm saying is that this, there are many people in Turkey that believe that this agreement that was signed between Turkey and Libya, in which so far, so to speak, as if they divided the Mediterranean Sea between them, prevent every possibility of currently Greece, Cyprus and Israel to put a pipeline that will stretch from collect the natural gas from Leviathan through Aphrodite and take the natural gas to Europe. According to the international law, this is definitely not the case.
What about Turkey's claims about Turkish government in Cyprus? Turkey claims that the agreement also bypasses Turkish Cypriots' rights on that territory.
So we are very much aware of the Turkish argument. I would say this. In the last 10 years, Israel have developed a strategic partnership with Greece, with Cyprus, with Egypt, and all of us are members of what is known as EastMed gas forum. The center of the EastMed gas forum, the EMGF, is in Cairo, and it has 4 members, which is Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, and some other states who are observers, Italy, Jordan, even the PA. We feel that we do not, it's not our intention or interest to pick up a fight with Turkey every time that Greece or Cyprus are having a problem with Turkey. So we don't want to have fights with Turkey day in and day out. But that has to be clear. Israel is very close to Greece, to Cyprus, and to Egypt, and basically those drillings next to Cyprus, maybe in the future next to Crimea, makes us unhappy. I think Jerusalem believes that those steps can destabilize the Eastern Med. We believe, like many other partners in the world, that the hydrocarbon sources in the Mid-East Med should be a source of stability and not a source of instability. And currently, I think some of the steps, as I told you, Elva, 2 minutes ago, that Turkey is taking in this sensitive area are understood in many parts of the world, and also in Jerusalem, as destabilizing steps.
Turkey is also a geopolitically important ally for Israel in some matters, especially about security, where for years Israel was not feeling secure in the area it was formed. So now we are seeing that energy policies and geopolitics is highly linked in Mediterranean Sea. So how could you define Israel's energy policies these days, and what are the pillars to not to disrupt the stability, not to cause another instability, especially after Syria? What are the pillars of Israel's energy policies?
So that's a very good question, Elva. You know, for many years we discussed with Turkey the possibility of having a pipeline to take the natural gas from Leviathan to Mersin, or Jihan or Mersin, and then to take it to Europe.
Yes.
This option has many economic advantages. This route is much shorter than the other one. The seabed is not so deep. So technologically and economically, it's a very, I would say, serious option. However, what often I see is that people here ignore is the lack of political viability. Under the current circumstances and the tension that was built in the region for the last few years, which we believe that Turkey has some responsibility for this tension, nothing can be achieved between Jerusalem and Ankara. Not a pipeline between Leviathan and Mersin, and certainly not signing an agreement. If indeed a maritime agreement. if indeed the relationship would be better, I believe that energy should be a source of stability and not instability as it is now. I personally believe that Israel and Turkey has also other interests. I believe that Syria, this doesn't touch energy, but I think it touches geostrategy. I believe that Syria can be a joint interest of both states. The same problems Turkey has with Syria in the north is the same problems that Israel have with Syria in the south, and this is mainly lack of political stability that invites all kind of, I would say, unwanted elements into Syria, all kind of proxies that basically challenge your soldiers in the north of Syria and challenge our soldiers in the south of Syria. And since we are recorded, I will not say who is challenging your forces and our forces, but those basically are the same proxies that are attacking your soldiers in the north and attacking our soldiers in the south. So I believe that on top of energy, also Syria could have been an important chapter of dialogue between Israel and Turkey if the conditions were different.
So in this context, what are Israel's expectations from Turkey to maintain stability and security for all the states in the Middle East?
In order to reach some strategic dialogue between Israel and Turkey, as we had many years ago, first of all, Turkey will need to normalize the relationship with Israel. First normalization, then you go to other levels. And that has to be said that 2 years ago, Turkey have asked the Israeli ambassador here to go back to Jerusalem. In return, Israel sent the Turkish ambassador here, and then the consuls in Istanbul and Jerusalem. So, under the current circumstances, the dialogue, which is between Ankara and Jerusalem, is very basic. It goes really into not in the desired level of partnership. And I say that many of the things that are, I would say, currently hurdles in the relationship between Turkey and Israel could turn to be something positive, could turn to be something that is building trust, that is building stability, if indeed Turkey will change its attitude towards Jerusalem. The ball is on the Turkish side, because again, they asked the Israeli ambassador 2 years ago to leave. If you ask me if this is possible, if this is doable, I don't know, Elva. I think you have to direct this question to the Turkish side. Unfortunately, we do not see a sign that Turkey might change the position vis-à-vis Israel. We just have now a new government in Israel. This could have been an opportunity. This opportunity was not taken, so I can only tell you what is the view from Jerusalem, and this is basically the view from Jerusalem. Much more can be achieved. The ball is currently on the Turkish side.
I understand what you said, but alienating Turkey from Mediterranean Sea, it sounds like it just makes things harder, especially Turkey is sharing borders with Iran, and Europe is now on the East Med side. They want this agreement to happen, maybe. So, how can an alienated Turkey can cooperate more with the surrounding states of Mediterranean Sea?
I agree with you. First of all, let me tell you that the EU is supporting the East Med pipeline, the one that goes from Leviathan and Aphrodite to Greece and to Italy. They are sponsoring a part of the feasibility studies. It's a very expensive project. You're talking about $7 billion that will be financed by private companies, but the feasibility studies, which is about 50 million euro, most of it is being financed by the EU. I think the EU has a positive approach towards this pipeline. As for the geopolitical question that you asked, I must tell you, Elva, for the third time, sorry I repeat myself, but I think it's important. Much of the steps that were taken lately by Ankara vis-à-vis the East Med are seen by the international community as provocation. And in Jerusalem, it is being seen as steps that do not contribute to stability, to say the least, and because of the camera, I'm using a diplomatic language. I believe that if Turkey will be interested to open a dialogue, not only with Israel, but also with Greece, with Cyprus, and with Egypt, on the energy sources in the East Med, Turkey will find an open door. But if Turkey will try to break the door, currently this door is very strong. Those four partners, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, and Egypt, we are working very close together. We still all believe in the availability of the East Med pipeline. The East Med gas forum in Cairo is very active. Israeli government is going to this week to confirm our participation in the future East Med pipeline after the government of Greece and the government of Cyprus did so in the last months. So this pipeline indeed is having some serious challenges, as I told you, mainly economic and logistic, technical, but at the same time, the determination of those three governments, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, to implement this vision should not be underestimated.
So EastMed is getting more and more serious, and as far as I understood, the states are committed. How about the Palestine is joined to East Mediterranean gas forum? How do you evaluate the existence of Gaza in the East Med project?
Well, as you know,
how could it? I'm sorry.
Please, sorry.
I just want to be personal.
Sorry.
How could it develop the area, Israel and Gaza, at the same time? Could it be a new cooperation area? Is it sustainable for your perspective?
So Gaza itself has a gas field known as Gaza Marine, which is not far from Gaza in the sea. Israel would like to see stability in the PA and even stability in Gaza, though, as you know, the Palestinian Authority is divided into two parts. One part is the West Bank, which is controlled by Mr. Abu Mazen from Ramallah. Another one is Gaza, which is under the, I would say, the authority of Hamas. Now, that has to be clear. Israel views Hamas just the way Turkey views PKK. That's very clear. Unfortunately, and here I'm touching something that has been done, it's not touching exactly energy, but it's important for me to say. While Israel keeps distance from PKK, Turkey doesn't keep any distance from Hamas. And for us, that's another source of great bitterness in Jerusalem vis-à-vis Turkey. Turkey is having very close relationship with Hamas. For us, Hamas is like PKK for yours. It's a terror organization that would like to eliminate the state of Israel. Now let's go back to energy. Marine gas field. With all the difficulties we have with the Hamas, we would like to achieve economic stability both in the West Bank and in Gaza. I think during the last COVID-19 challenge, we helped Hamas people in Gaza as much as we could. Also Turkey helped a little bit in order to make sure that you have no pandemic in Gaza. Gaza, you know, is very many people, and pandemic there could have been very big. So far, we have managed to succeed.
I would about ISMED, actually, the other participating countries are not politically very stable countries, and since the formation of Israel, the economic relations were highly dependent on diplomatic crisis. Not with Turkey, like in Turkey the case was like, that we're having some diplomatic crisis maybe, but economic gains and common interests are always just, they surpass the other ones. They don't affect the cooperation on economic fields. Can you be sure about, or do you have any confidence in these countries such as Egypt and Lebanon, the process of formation of ISMED is not going to be interrupted by political instabilities in these states?
So you mentioned Egypt and Lebanon.
Yes.
Lebanon is a different issue.
Yes.
Lebanon is a very unstable state. Also, Lebanon has some gas fields that have not been developed so far because of some disagreement they have with Israel. We would like to see stability in Lebanon. Not a stability which is being governed by the Hezbollah, but a stability of a civil government in Beirut. Currently, I think it will be fair to say that Lebanon is a very unstable state, unfortunately, and hopefully the gas field that they have more or less along the border with Israel next to Ras Nakura will indeed be a source of economic stability in Lebanon that will help to contribute political stability. That's Lebanon. Egypt is a strategic partner of Israel. This wasn't always the case. That's a development of the last few years, and we are very proud of that. We have a very long border with Egypt. It is the strongest Arab state. We believe that Egypt is a very stable state, facing many challenges, facing now a challenge in Libya, which part of it is a Turkish challenge, facing a challenge with Ethiopia on building a dam here along the border between Ethiopia and Sudan. So Egypt is indeed facing many challenges, but this is not to be confused with lack of stability. We believe that Mr. Assisi is leading a very stable state.
Yes, right now, maybe with the leaders of these Arab states, Israel built a relationship, but you're going to heavily invest on this project. So what about the possible future leaders?
Look,
you can never know what's going to happen in Egypt or Lebanon because it became a culture.
Again, Lebanon, I'd rather not speak about it at length. I think the situation in Lebanon is dire, is not good. I think Hezbollah is basically manipulating the state, and I personally feel very bad for the Lebanese people, who I think they are very good people. As for Egypt, let it be very clear, we are on record, we have no doubt for the stability of Egypt. Indeed, they faced a crisis in 2011. Mr. Morsi, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, and became the president of Egypt for a short time, led them nearly to a chaos. But we are happy that Mr. Assisi have managed to overcome this challenge and led Egypt into stability. By the way, one of the options, you know, I'll go back to energy. In Leviathan, we have 900 BCM, billion cubic meters, that are being waiting to be exported to Europe. So we spoke about the ISMED pipeline. This is one option. Turkey is trying to renew maybe the Leviathan Mersin pipeline. That's another option, which, as I told you, politically, currently, it's not on the map. But there are a few other options. One of them is to use the Egyptian energy facilities. There is now a pipeline between Israel and Egypt that currently, I think, can take 7.5 BCM, billion cubic meter in a year. In the future, maybe 15 BCM. Egypt is having some LNG facilities which are not working in full capacity, and this might be another way to take Israeli gas. So Europe, as you know, there is gas that goes through pipeline, but if you turn gas into a liquid, that's why I call it LNG, it can go through ships. So this is another option. And Israel is also considering nowadays to build an FLNG, floating LNG facility on top of Leviathan, and this a very expensive project. But this will give Israel a complete independence in marketing the gas. So we do have some options. Currently, I think we have 3 options: the East Med pipeline, the Israeli floating LNG facility, and the LNG facilities in Egypt.
What do you see about Israeli-Turkey relationships lately? Where are the relationships heading to?
Look, there are some what I call islands of partnership. It's not all gloomy or negative. For instance, the bilateral trade between the two countries reached in 2019 $7 billion, of which 5.5 is Turkish export and only 1.5 is Israeli export. That's okay with us. I mean, Israel is a major destination for Turkish export. I think that's a big plus. Israel, Turkish construction companies are very active in Israel. There are thousands of Turkish employees in Israel that send their salary every month to their families in Turkey. So there are thousands of families all over Turkey that are leaning on salary that they are getting basically from the activity of Turkish construction families in Israel. In other words, in many of the civil aspects, relationships are very fair, solid. But this is A level. If we want to go to B level, something needs to be done, and this something is to normalize the bilateral relations.
Yes, there are many things going on in the Mediterranean, as you said. We don't hear anyone is coming with a solid solution. No one is offering, everyone's raising concerns, but there is no one coming and saying, yeah, this should be done. So about Libya, can we say the biggest obstacle for Israel, in Israel's eyes, is the argument between Turkey and Libya? And how do you evaluate the situation in Libya? Which government has legitimacy in the eyes of Israel? The UN-backed one or the Hamas-backed one?
So this is an easy question. Out of all the questions you asked me so far, Eva, this is the easiest one. Israel has no dog in this fight. We wish the Libyan people stability and peace.
So, according to Israeli officials, what would be the solution of the ongoing clash of interests of Turkey and Israel in the Mediterranean Sea? Do you have any message to officials or authorities or any offering a solution to this problem, concerning also Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots?
Again, we are very close to Cyprus, what you call the Greek administration of Cyprus. But if you ask me about kind of the bottom line, Eva, I would say this. Israel would like to see peace and tranquility in this area. You asked me about Lebanon, you asked me about other places, Libya. We believe that the road to peace and tranquility is a dialogue and not confrontation, not taking one-sided steps, unilateral steps, as we believe the agreement between Turkey and Libya was. And I believe that I'm not sure that Israel and Turkey can renew nowadays the strategic dialogues that we had during the 90s. I'm not sure we are there, but we have to start somewhere. With every day that passes, the door gets closed, becoming the gap or the opportunity to renew or to normalize the relationship is becoming narrower and narrower. I will say this with all the sensitivities. Israel didn't make any public statement on the Hagia Sophia issue. But when in Jerusalem they read, they hear that the president of this country is saying that now it's Hagia Sophia and next it is Al-Aqsa, this basically doesn't contribute to peace and stability, according to me, to us, and I will say this. Many Arab states have different view than Jerusalem on the Palestinian issue. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all those states are much more relevant to solving the Palestinian problem than Turkey. And why? Because they understand that establishing a diplomatic dialogue with Israel is much more helpful also to the Palestinians than what I call megaphone diplomacy. Megaphone diplomacy is good for public relations, but if you would like really to be relevant to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, you have to act like Egypt, which is very relevant to Gaza, and like Jordan, which is very relevant to the West Bank and Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa. Currently, Jordan has a special status in Jerusalem, and Jordan is the guardian of the Muslim sites in Jerusalem. We have very close and good dialogue with Jordan. On the West Bank, we have a good dialogue with Egypt. On Gaza, both states do not agree with us. Both states have a different agenda than us. Yet, they are much more relevant to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So, to sum it up, I believe that the key to many of the issues you challenged me with, Erva, today, is establishing a diplomatic dialogue between Israel and Turkey that will replace the public and the megaphone dialogue. This public and megaphone dialogue, which is basically sounded from here, from Ankara, is not good for business.
Then we should say the door should be open, the door should stay open.
I think so. Again, I said already earlier on, and I will repeat it, the ball, as both Jerusalem and Ankara know, is on the Turkish side, and Turkey knows what needs to be done. If what needs to be done will be done, the answer is not here, so it's next to a different table here in Ankara.
Well, thank you for your answers. Your sincere answers.
I tried my best.